one thing that I've been quite humble to hear from both speakers is the human element. The human AI department, which I absolutely love, that's gone that way. And the fact that Olivier's just talked about fundamentals around people and your approach to value creation, I think is super important. Am I going the wrong way? Yeah, down. There we go. So what I wanted to talk to you about, well, first I must declare something. I am not working at the moment. And so I come in peace. Okay? I have been working for a while in various companies, and they've ranged from listed organizations like BT, entrepreneurial organizations where they're a startup, and I could stand on the desk and see the whole company, and it was smaller than this, Tiscali, Talk. And then I went into energy, which was interesting. There was a 200-year-old company called Centrica that owns British Gas, Bord Gosh, and some other entities around the world. And then I went into a family-owned organisation, although Talk was owned by Charles Dunstone for a number of years, and actually still is. And the reality is, working for Richard Branson in the Virgin Group and Virgin Atlantic was an eye-opener. I then went back into listed, into the fun of insurance and fintech, and spent 3 years. And yesterday we sold the company to Aviva. And so I've not been doing anything since last year because I knew the company sale was going through. And so when I got asked to do this, I was in a really different place. And I was in Italy. You may have guessed. I was in Italy traveling with my wife, who was an artist. I'll come back to that in a minute. And fundamentally, I was reevaluating everything. I'm not suggesting you do it, by the way. It can cause complications. But I am very lucky in that I am going to be going into a role which is PE-backed by Blackstone and Kirkby family-owned Lego in August. And that's going to be being Group CDIO for Merlin Entertainments. So the reality is I'm not yet done. But I had a lovely little break. And in that break, I thought a little bit about what I'm going to do next and what I wanted to share with the people that I work with and some of the colleagues that I still have that have been working away in the last 12 months while I've been traveling around the world and enjoying life. And one of the things that came up really quickly was that the questionnaire that Julian put up earlier is that, yes, we are technology leaders, but that's no longer good enough, and it's never been good enough. In the room here, and I've been sat on that side, I have not reported to the CEO. I have been a number of rungs below, or into a CFO, or into all the variations of where technology lives in organizations exist. And it matters now. It matters for so many other different reasons than the changes that happen with the internet, with cloud, with all the things that we've seen in our lifetimes. And I am in a room, and I must say thank you all for coming on a hot day, of very distinguished leaders who've got varied opinions. And today, this is my opinion, because I've been on that side, and I'm not preaching anything. I'm telling you what I've screwed up and what I've learned. That's all I'm doing today, and hopefully you can ask me some questions about it. So what have I screwed up? Well, quite a lot. I've learned through bitter experience that it matters where you are involved in the vision, the purpose, and strategy of the organization you're in. Because fundamentally, the technology waves will keep coming. The next one will be Q-Day, quantum. They'll just keep coming. And many of us have seen them all, one by one, come through our careers. This is just another wave, but it's not, and we said that for nearly everything, but this one is different because it's fundamental to the way businesses must adjust. And so for those of you, and I did do engineering product design, not here, I did it at South Bank University, but I did come to IC for a few things. And my background's in compute as well. I did product design, and I've always been in compute. And Moore's Law, all of you, and for those of you who don't know, I won't assume anything. But broadly speaking, depending who you speak to and what Wikipedia or Gemini search you do, is that every 2 years, compute will double. That was the law. And it has been like that for maybe 20, 30, 40 years. And fundamentally, it is held as a curve. But actually, because of software and the way that we're applying computational silicon and some of the changes that happen with NVIDIA and the GPU capabilities, some things have been broken. Some fundamental things that mean that we can no longer go back into work and just be technology leaders. And if we do not get that message across to the people that we're working with and the rigorous PE process that I went through and the executive people that I've been trying to help in this new role, it makes life super, super difficult. And I decided when I was having my 12 months off, and this was just my choice, and this is, you do you, I'll do me, but the reality was I decided I wasn't going to work anywhere that didn't accept that the fundamentals have changed. And so for me, Moore's Law was really a bit of a reset personally. I know this is quite deep, isn't it? I feel like I'm sharing quite a lot here. But if I just explain the graph a little bit, oh, some formatting's changed, but it's okay. That's his advantage, usually business advantage on that axis. On the what, and that should say time. I don't know what's happened here on the slides, but let's just assume everything's okay. And usually it was linear. And for many, many years it was linear. But a couple of things have happened with cloud, with compute, and now with generative AI and our ability with data that has meant the gap has expanded for those companies that are doing well and those companies that are changing or struggling. And most organizations are now struggling, especially retail organizations, with the way that search works, the way that retail works, and more importantly, the way that consumers find and allocate their share of wallet to organizations. It's changing in B2C. I cannot imagine how much it's changing in B2B and B2B2C. But fundamentally, we can no longer ignore it. And the amount of CEOs and ExCos and chairs that I speak to that still think it's a bit of a fad is shocking, given the conversations I've had on my time off to join new companies. So the first thing I'd say is we've got a really difficult task as C-level executives or technologists in this room to bring the truth forward. It does require you to be not just a technologist. And so I'll speak for myself. I've tried being just a technologist, and yeah, I've done all right. I did in telco, we built some cool shit, some websites, app first, but it never really gave me the purpose change that I was looking for personally. When I think about PE and I think about what my new stakeholders want, they want a significant change in purpose and numerical value creation for the organization. So I actually think, weirdly, my personal values and business values are now coming back together again with a paradigm shift. That's how I think about AI. That's just my truth. You can do what you do. You can ask me questions later. So the roadmap. I'm so happy Olivier talked about having our shit sorted out when people come and ask us what's going on. How many of us have really got a clear understanding or are working with a team with a clear understanding of a business and technological roadmap that is fit for purpose, given how quickly things are changing? And I think we need to think carefully and thoughtfully about how that operates. And one of the things that I'm trying to do now with the Merlin team is ensure that that's in place. Because fundamentally, without vision, purpose, and strategy and a roadmap that works, the culture of the organization will persist in whatever model you build, in whatever other architecture you architect. And if your culture is not right at Exco and at Chair, fundamentally you'll just purport it onto your website, onto your retail engine, onto your front window, onto your B2B interfaces, and you can see it. And forgive me if anyone's here is from British Airways, but if you go to the British Airways website, you can still see the disconnects between holiday, and I'm sure they've tried to fix it. That's nothing to do with technology. That's a cultural problem. And forgive me if anyone here is from IAG, but it's a cultural problem. It's been broken for years. You fundamentally need to understand where your customers are, look after the people that are working for you, and they'll look after your customers on a roadmap. That's what Richard told me when I joined Virgin Atlantic. And that's how he runs his businesses. So what? I've shown you a lovely graph, IC, to make it look like it fits into the environment. But fundamentally, I think we should think about how quickly we have to go back to basics. Because for me, the fundamentals, and I worked for many, many CIOs, but the best CIO I worked for was a guy called Dr. David Cooper. And if some of you know David Cooper, he's ex-BT, and he always taught me, and I definitely, when I work with the new leaders and new CIOs, and I'm very lucky that some people have worked for me and now CIOs around the UK and around the world, you stick to the fundamentals, and the fundamentals will then set you free. And for us, I do think, as technology leaders, we need to go back, not to the 15th and 16th century, but to the one that's in orange. Go back to what our fundamentals are. It's not very popular to go back to your board and say, we need an architectural plan that links in to a business strategy. Can you tell me what your, in pencil, what your 3-year strategy is, what your 2-year strategy is, and what your 1-year strategy is, and how does it go to 5 years? It doesn't work if you don't go back to fundamentals. I'll go back to Italy now. So I was in Florence, and I was thinking about what I was doing, and something just got released. I think it was Firefly 2.0, and I just went onto my Adobe login, and I asked Firefly to generate me a Renaissance image that had a technology bias via Siri. This is the image it created. That was in April. Now, if you look at the video creation capability that Google's just released, yeah, it is July. Do you see the problem? The pace at which the product sets are coming out on this new tech fundamentally is shifting. And all the press you read is real, but we've got the problem now. And so while I was in Florence, and by the way, this is I was actually looking at this. I was in the Uffizi, which actually, for those of you Italian, means office. I thought that was brilliant. So all the art's in the office. And I do think there's a real parallel now of being creative in the way we think going forward to help our business be more technologically advanced. Because the differentiator will be the human. The mind that we have, the creativity that we own, that will be the differentiator. The commodity is coming if not here already. So that's what I was thinking about. This is, by the way, if anyone's interested, I didn't actually tag it. This is the Oxford English definition. I should have sourced it. I've just remembered where I am, sorry. The image was created by Adobe Firefly via Adobe Express. Other image generators are available. So I just thought I'd do that. So what? Fundamentals. The fundamentals are the revival. The revival is the fundamentals. That's how I'm thinking about them. But what are the fundamentals? So I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you what my fundamentals are, and you can then grill me later. It is not an AI first strategy. It has never been a digital first strategy. It's not a mobile first strategy. Those are not strategies. Those are really nice Gartner taglines. So for me, fundamentals are around the things that Olivier talked about just before me. What is your security by design approach? Have you got an ethical and cultural organization as a leader that you can work with to understand where you stop and start on your values for your models and your training? Do you understand how much of the data and your privacy and how much control you're going to give to your consumer or the partners that you're working with? Do you have the boundary set around where your data sharing is, where you buy your data, ethically where your data is being stored, how it's executed, what data centers it's in? These things now do matter more than ever, especially when you look at the energy usage that some of this technology uses. It's not just for the CSR report. I genuinely believe, and these are my truths, that the fundamentals are going back to the architectural layers, to your security capability, to where your engineering is done and how your engineering is done and where you want that to be in your organization. And so that's one part of it. The second part of it is transformation. I was really heartened to see on the question set, and I quickly wrote this down, although my eyes may have failed me, that 53% of you are actually spending time thinking about your change capability. Absolutely right, I think. Because it's all for nothing if you can't pump the change through your organization. Whether that's with you or with your CFO or your PMO or whatever it is you've got, think long and hard, and I'm definitely doing that with my new gig. Where is change done? How is it done? And is it culturally set up for success? Do you genuinely test and learn and tap each other on the back for failure when things don't go wrong and you go into the next thing? Or secretly, are people going, oh my God, that's failed, how much money did we spend? Because you will never get through the curves fast enough given how fast things are coming. Or 12% of you are working on legacy. So another fundamental, unless it's greenfield, I cannot describe to you. I can actually say this now. When I walked into Direct Line Group, because it's sold now, but when I walked into Direct Line Group, the amount of mainframes still running, right? The amount of interface layers. I mean, there were technologies that I thought gone out of business, still ETLing and transforming and pumping the beautiful Azure data lake. I mean, it was lovely, but behind it all, there was just a Frankenstein's layer of nonsense. And none of you have got that, so that's okay. You're all fine. But the reality is you have to fix the basics, otherwise your OpEx will never go down, and you have to clear out the bottom stack of what's going on. And so shielding it and doing all the beautiful digital first, headless architectures, blah, 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 blah. We've all seen it all, right? That's all great. It will get you so far. But if you are acquired by PE and then the advisor comes in and has a look under the covers, it says, actually, no, that's in my time frame of what I need to extract. Why can't you pump more through customers through? Why can't you scale geographically? Why are you not able to do X, Y, Z? And why can't you bundle why is your data also segregated? And you go back to it, the fundamentals will be the architecture. And I think all of us know that. So that's how I think about the mixtape for firsts. Do the fundamentals well. It's a bit like breathing, it's a bit like eating, it's a bit like laughing. That's life. The reality is when we're technologists, we have to deal with that, but we also need to be business people. I wanted to walk you through transformations. Sorry about the formatting. I don't know what's happened. No, that's okay. So I've been through a number of telco, energy, aviation. This applies to all of the brands that I mentioned earlier where I've worked. And I've always seen, broadly speaking, this setup of a technology organization, maybe largely outsourced, maybe not outsourced, some customers and colleagues that are trying to do something somewhere, usually front-facing, so I've usually been in heavy BTC type organisations, so there'll be 15,000 engineers at British Gas in vans, or in BT the same actually. Talk less so, but we still had front engineers. Virgin Atlantic, it was cabin crew, pilots, ground staff, hoteliers, and then we had the business, like the core head office, the people running things, and usually there are cultures associated with them, and we've all seen versions of this in our careers. If you're lucky, you get some focus, and the business and the customer environments are conjoined. They're driving each other. You've got people that are serving customers who are tightly integrated with the commercial side of the business, and there's a good overlap. And more often than not, the technology organization is a function. And I use these words very, very specifically. if you are still known as a function in your organization, the nomenclature may be a problem going forward in this new world. And there's been varying degrees of overlap, but when the balance is right, you start to see real progress in activity. And so for me as technological leaders, and for my next future gig, you have to try and get the balance right. Now, if this doesn't apply to you, this is great. You're doing really well, and it's phenomenal. The magic will happen automatically. But the real sweet spot is when no one even talks about the departments, and all you're doing is focusing on the customer, which was Virgin Atlantic. There wasn't a tech department, there wasn't a commercial department, there was no people organization. There was the customer, the customer, the customer. There were no customer slides. That's the DNA of Virgin Atlantic, it's the DNA of Virgin. And so you can really crack on with activity, because that's the sweet spot. And that culture, that curiosity, that ability to constantly have a growth mindset and learn is the differentiator as a technologist. Because when you've got that, and in my experience, and this is just again my view of the world, you can pretty much do anything. But it's getting a little bit more complicated, because hopefully all of our humans in our business are using AI and the technologies with or without our permission. We can try and lock it down, good luck with that. But the reality is, it's just going to prevail like electricity and air in this room in everything that we're doing. And so the reality is, we have to be conscious of the thing that we can really influence. And what I've written here on this bit of paper is the culture is the most important thing that I have got wrong in trying to work out in joining every organization I've been in. I've not focused on it enough. I've not adapted it enough. I've not lent into it enough so that my technological transformation for the business could be successful. And so my biggest learning while I was in Florence was to take all the culture of the art, of the Renaissance, and relearn and genuinely rethink how I was going to do business when I re-emerged. If I re-emerged, I was hoping to have a little bit more time off, but things happen. And so for me, vision, purpose, strategy in service of culture is the thing that will make AI work. The tech will come, there'll be more tech coming, and if any of you are playing with qubits, I went to the Oxford Labs recently. It's unbelievable. If you haven't been there, go and have a look of what's coming. It's the paradigm shift that's going to bring to that graph is going to be phenomenal. So that's me. Thank you very much.